Lisa was still in her work clothes when she opened the brokerage app at her kitchen table. It was 7:14 p.m. Her laptop was half open. Dinner was still in the microwave. And there it was again, the number she had been checking more often than she wanted to admit. Lisa was 28 years old, a marketing coordinator, earning $52,000 a year. Not rich, not broke, careful. Every month, $500 moved automatically from her checking account into a broad index fund. No stock picking, no crypto gamble, no panic buying when the market was up, no selling when the market was down. Just the boring plan everyone says you are supposed to follow. She had done this for a full year, 12 deposits, $6,000 of her own money, and the account showed only about $225 of growth. Not $2,000, not some dramatic proof that investing was changing her life. About $225. That was the part that bothered her. Because Lisa had not been irresponsible, she had been exactly the opposite. She had skipped a newer phone, she had kept her old couch, she had watched friends book trips and told herself the quiet, automatic transfer was the adult decision. But after 1 year, investing felt almost identical to saving cash, except with more anxiety. A few miles away, Marcus was making the opposite decision and feeling just as reasonable. Marcus was 31, an IT support specialist earning $67,000 a year. He was not reckless either. He paid his bills on time. He had no interest in gambling on meme stocks. He had seen coworkers get laid off with 2 weeks of severance and a car payment that did not care. So Marcus kept cash, extra cash. Rent was high. Groceries were high. His car had 112,000 miles on it, and every strange noise sounded like a $1,400 repair. He told himself he would invest seriously when he got the next promotion, when he could do $1,000 a month instead of a few hundred, when the numbers finally looked meaningful. And honestly, that sounded smart. Safety feels rational. Cash feels like control. And when you look at Lisa's first year, Marcus's hesitation seems even more logical. Why lock up $500 a month, accept market swings, and then watch the account grow by only a couple $100s? Lisa looked at her small gain and wondered if compounding was overrated. Marcus looked at small, early gains and decided they were not worth sacrificing flexibility. Both were disciplined. Both were trying to avoid mistakes. Neither one was blowing money on nonsense and calling it self-care. Neither one was chasing a hot stock tip from a comment section. Neither one was financially careless. That is why this trap is so hard to see, because the danger is not that Lisa is doing the wrong thing. The danger is that doing the right thing feels unrewarding at the exact moment she most needs to keep doing it. And the danger is not that Marcus is foolish for wanting cash. The danger is that waiting until investing feels meaningful delays the very base that later makes it meaningful. Lisa thinks she is measuring the performance of compounding. She is not. She is measuring the first inch of a machine that has barely been built. Marcus thinks he is postponing deposits. He is not just postponing deposits. He is postponing the machine. Professor Wealth ran the numbers. If Lisa invests $500 a month and earns an assumed 7% annual return spread through the year, her first-year market gain is only about $225. That surprises people because they hear 7% and mentally apply it to the full $6,000. But she did not invest $6,000 on January 1st. She invested $500 in January, then $500 in February, then $500 in March, and kept going every month. Most of her money was not invested for the full year. Some of it was invested for only a few months. The last deposit barely had time to do anything at all. So at the end of year one, the account is mostly Lisa. Her effort, her transfers, her restraint, her $6,000. The growth is real, but it is quiet. About $225 is not failure. It is the sound of compounding before the account has enough mass to speak loudly. But around year 10, the same habit starts to look different. Not because Lisa became a genius, not because the index fund became magical, not because she found a secret, because the base got larger. At $500 a month, Lisa contributes $6,000 a year. In the beginning, the portfolio is too small for the market gains to compete with that. Her deposits are doing almost all the work, but after years of contributions and reinvested growth, the account can reach a point where the annual growth begins to rival the amount she contributes. Then it can exceed it. The same plan that looked weak in year one starts carrying more of the load later. That is the paradox. Compounding is real, but it does not feel real in the beginning. In the beginning, It feels like discipline without applause. It feels like sending money away and getting a tiny number back. It feels like Lisa staring at $225 and wondering whether the whole idea was oversold. And for Marcus, that quiet phase becomes an excuse to wait. He sees the early years as low impact years because the gains are small, but those years are not valuable because they look impressive on a statement. They are valuable because they create the principle that later makes the statement impressive. The first stage of compounding is not designed to impress you, it is designed to build the pile, and until the pile exists, the growth cannot look powerful. That is what Lisa cannot see at her kitchen table, and it is what Marcus cannot see while his savings balance makes him feel protected. One is acting early but feels unrewarded. The other is waiting until the reward feels visible. Both are responding to what they can see, but wealth is often shaped by the part of the math that is still invisible. So if Lisa is doing the right thing and still feels like nothing is happening, how long does she have to keep going before the portfolio starts doing meaningful work on its own? And what does Marcus lose by waiting until that moment feels obvious? Lisa's first year feels disappointing because, mathematically, it is supposed to feel disappointing. She puts in $500 a month. That is $6,000 over the year. And if the index fund earns an assumed 7% annual return, compounded monthly, the mistake is thinking she should see 7% on the full $6,000. She does not, because the earliest $500 had almost the full year to work. The last $500 barely had any time to work. Most of the money did not have 12 months to work. Professor Wealth ran the numbers. At $500 per month, with a 7% annual return compounded monthly, Lisa ends the first year with roughly $6,200, not $6,420, not some dramatic jump, about $6,200. That means $6,000 came from Lisa's paycheck, and only about $200 came from the market. And this is where the emotional trap begins. Because Lisa expected investing to feel like a machine, she expected to see proof. Instead, it feels like a slow savings account that sometimes drops for no obvious reason. She did everything the book said. She automated. She bought a broad index fund. She ignored the noise. And after 12 months, the reward looks like a few dinners out. But that $200 is not evidence that compounding failed. It is evidence that the base is still tiny. Early compounding is not powerful because the return rate is weak. It is quiet because there is not enough money yet for the return rate to act on. The contributions dominate the account. The growth is there, but it is buried under the effort. And if Lisa sees that $200 and says, "This is not worth it," she protects herself from the feeling of disappointment, but she also sacrifices the base that later creates six figures of growth. The same $500 monthly habit looks weak for a while. Then, slowly, the account starts to change shape. Keep Lisa at age 28, same $500 a month, same assumed 7% return, same broad index fund. After 5 years, she has contributed $30,000. Her balance is roughly $35,800. So now, growth has added about $5,800. Still not life-changing, still not the kind of number that makes someone feel wealthy, but the machine is getting heavier. By year 10, Lisa has contributed $60,000. Her balance is roughly $86,500. Now about $26,500 came from growth. That is the shift. The same plan that looked almost pointless in year 1 is now producing growth large enough to notice. Around the 10th year, the portfolio can begin generating annual growth that rivals the $6,000 Lisa is adding from her own paycheck. And eventually, in strong market years, the account may grow by more than she contributes, not because she found a better secret, not because she became smarter, because the base finally became large enough. Now compare that to the version of Lisa who stops too early. She invests for 3 years, gets discouraged, but leaves the money alone. After 3 years, her balance is roughly $19,300. If she stops contributing and just lets it sit until year 10, it may grow to about $31,500. That is still better than nothing, but compared with the Lisa who stayed automated and reached about $86,500, she is behind by about $55,000. Same person, same fund, same return assumption. The difference is not intelligence. It is whether she kept feeding the base during the boring years. Now take the other version. Lisa waits 3 years before starting. She tells herself she will invest once life feels more stable. At year 3, she begins the same $500 monthly contribution. By year 10, her account is roughly $54,100, better than quitting, but still about $32,400 behind the Lisa who started immediately and stayed consistent. This is why time matters in a way that feels unfair. Time does not merely add years. Time gives each contribution more years to produce returns, and then gives those returns more years to produce their own returns. Marcus's math is even more uncomfortable because he has the higher income. He earns $67,000. He feels responsible keeping extra cash in savings. And to be fair, he is not wrong to want liquidity. Rent is real. Car repairs are real. Layoffs happen. But his math is incomplete. Compare him with Lisa. Lisa starts at 28 with $500 per month. At 7%, after 20 years, she has contributed $120,000. Her portfolio is roughly $260,500. Marcus waits 5 years. Then at 36, he starts investing $500 per month for 15 years. He contributes $90,000. His ending balance is about $158,480. The gap is not just the $30,000 Lisa contributed during the 5 years Marcus waited. The gap is the growth on that money, and the growth on the growth. Lisa ends up ahead by roughly $102,000. Marcus had more income, he had more flexibility, but Lisa had the compounding base. Now Marcus tries to catch up. Instead of $500 a month, he invests $700 a month for 15 years. That means he contributes $126,000, more than Lisa's $120,000, and his ending balance is still only about $221,870. He contributes $6,000 more than Lisa and still finishes about $38,600 behind her. That is the cost of using bigger later contributions to fight a shorter time horizon. It can help, but it usually cannot fully replace the years that were skipped. Marcus waited until investing felt meaningful, but that feeling arrived after the most valuable years had already passed, and this is why savings can be both wise and expensive, depending on the job you give it. Suppose Marcus takes the same $500 per month and keeps it in a high-yield savings account at an assumed 4% for 5 years. That money grows to about $33,150. If he had invested the same $500 monthly at the assumed 7%, it would have grown to about $35,800. The visible gap is only about $2,650, and Marcus looks at that and thinks, "See, I stayed safe and I barely missed anything." That reaction makes sense. A $2,650 difference over 5 years does not feel like a financial tragedy. But the real cost is not only the first 5 years. The real cost is what happens when that smaller base compounds for the next 15. If the $35,800 investment base stays invested at 7%, it becomes about $98,800 by year 20. If Marcus's $33,150 savings base later gets invested at the same 7%, it becomes about $91,600. Now the original 5-year spread has grown to roughly $7,200, and that is just on that first block of money. Spreads matter more as the timeline gets longer. Cash feels productive because the interest is visible and stable. The bank pays a clear rate. The balance does not swing much. There is comfort in that. Market growth feels less reliable because it arrives unevenly. Some months it gives, some months it takes. But for long-term money, the uneven return is often the price paid for a higher expected return. That does not mean Marcus should have zero cash. It means cash and investing cannot be asked to do the same job, because the first decade is fragile. Lisa learns that in year 4. She has been investing $500 a month. She has contributed about $24,000. At the same 7% assumption, her balance is roughly $27,700. Then her transmission fails. The repair bill is ugly. Her emergency fund is thin, and suddenly the investment account looks available. She withdraws $8,000. Immediately, her account drops to about $19,700. That is the obvious damage, but the hidden damage is larger. If that $8,000 had stayed invested for 26 more years at 7%, it could have become about $46,500. And if the stress of the repair causes Lisa to pause contributions for 1 year, she misses another $6,000 of deposits. Over 25 years at 7%, That missed $6,000 could have grown to about $32,400. Together, depending on timing and how quickly she restarts, one interruption can approach a long-term cost of around $79,000 by year 30. That is the brutal part. The withdrawal does not behave like an $8,000 decision. It behaves like a future $75,000 to $80,000 decision. Not because emergencies are immoral, emergencies are normal. The problem is when emergency money and compounding money live in the same bucket. So the strategy is not to shame Lisa for needing a repair, and it is not to tell Marcus that safety is foolish. The strategy is to separate the machine from the shock absorbers. Lisa needs 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in FDIC-insured savings or short-term treasury bills before she treats her investment account as untouchable long-term money. That emergency fund is not there to maximize return. It is there to prevent forced selling. Then her $500 monthly index fund contribution stays automated, not because every month will feel good, because monthly feelings are the wrong scoreboard. In the early years, Lisa should track shares accumulated and dollars contributed, not dramatic gains. She is still building the base. Marcus needs the same structure. He should keep real emergency cash, but he should not wait until investing feels meaningful. If $500 feels uncomfortable, start with $300. If a raise comes later, increase the contribution, but do not ask a future raise to replace lost time. That is a hard trade. Emergency money absorbs shocks. Automation removes the need to decide every month. Share accumulation gives the investor a metric that matches the quiet phase. This turns compounding from a feeling into a system. And the system matters because the difference between protecting the first decade and interrupting it can be enormous. It can be the difference between Lisa reaching roughly $260,500 by year 20 and ending with tens of thousands less because she broke the machine before it had enough mass to help her. The math reveals the uncomfortable part. Compounding is not absent in the beginning. It is quiet. At 38, Lisa is still not rich. She still earns ordinary pay. She still drives a used car. She still invests the same $500 a month, but the account feels different now. It no longer looks like a receipt for her discipline. It looks like a second worker in the room. The early gain that once felt almost insulting, the month where she saw $18 of growth and wondered if she was wasting her time, has become a month where the market can add roughly $2,000 without asking her to work overtime, cancel another subscription, or pick up a side hustle. Same Lisa, same habit, same return assumption, different base. And Marcus, at 41, is finally investing more than Lisa ever did. He is not lazy. He is not reckless. He is not someone who ignored money. He waited because waiting felt responsible. He wanted more cash, more room, more certainty. He wanted investing to feel big enough to matter. That was the trap. The years he skipped were not impressive years on a statement. They were not years where compounding would have looked powerful, but they were the base layer future growth needed. Lisa missed one thing. The first decade was not supposed to look powerful. It was supposed to build enough principle for power to become visible. Marcus missed the opposite side of the same truth. Cash protected him from short-term volatility, but it also exposed him to a quieter long-term cost, never giving compounding enough time to carry real weight. Now, the mechanism is clear. Compounding has a minimum. Below that minimum, your contributions dominate the chart. Gains look small. Progress feels slow. You feel like you are pushing a stalled car. Above that minimum, nothing magical changes. The same math simply has enough mass to show itself. That is why Lisa's $8,000 withdrawal in year 4 was not just an $8,000 decision. Over decades, at a 7% assumption, it could behave like a $50,000 or $60,000 decision. Emergency money and compounding money need separate jobs. Build the emergency fund outside the portfolio. Automate investing before motivation has a vote. Measure the early years by shares accumulated, not dramatic dollar gains. Protect the first decade like the foundation of the entire structure, because it is. If this video helped you see something you did not know was there, subscribe to Smart Money and hit the notification bell. We break down the hidden math behind the financial decisions you face every day. Compounding does not feel magical at the beginning because the beginning is where you build the machine.